All right, everyone, welcome back to the Anchor of the Week, where we have hard conversations, hear people's stories, and challenge perspectives. I'm Courtney.
And I'm Zach.
And we are continuing our series on the mind and behaviors today.
Yes, today, team, we are going to be talking about coping mechanisms. Wow.
Dun, dun, dun. Like, I feel like we should have some sound effects.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to add that in. But yeah, huge subject, team.
Yeah.
And this has challenged our thoughts quite a lot.
Too much.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would think.
A little bit too much, yeah. But yeah, look, we found, obviously, with the whole idea of therapy and how the mind works and how it relates to our behaviors, we've just found that there's actually what people would call therapy is actually just lots of different ways of coping. Isn't it? And so that's what we were finding in our research. So we thought actually it'd be really cool to actually talk about what is a coping mechanism and the role it plays.
But I think as well, like as humans, we just adapt and adopt all these coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
There it is. Every single time. Coping. She's from Canada. Eh? She says coping all the time. You don't hear it, and it's very frustrating that you don't. Well, no, it's fine. It's fine. You don't have to hear it. It's not that frustrating. But like we adopt these coping mechanisms. Yeah. But we're not even aware of them half the time.
Yeah.
And so I think, well, if this series has done one thing, it's made us a lot more self-aware,
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
Which is
definitely. Yeah.
great, but also.
Right.
Wow.
Let's look into the definition of coping mechanism. So this is what we look up on Google, and this is what you'll find. It says strategies people often use in the face of stress and/or trauma to help manage painful or difficult emotions. So it's basically ways of being able to deal and face stress, etc.
They're tools, but I think this is where we're gonna find like the big difference. And again, okay, side note as well though, when we were doing research, a lot of this like put coping mechanisms in a good light.
Yeah.
Or like as a good thing. I have literally my entire life have had a negative connotation to coping mechanisms or like the word coping mechanisms. Right. So for me that was very strange.
Why is that though? What's your big thing against it?
I literally think I was raised to understand that like you just don't cope with things. Okay. You know, or like
you want to get past the struggle.
Yeah, or like it's not even. I don't even say that was necessarily like now. I think that for sure, which we'll definitely like dive into in a bit. Yeah. But I also think it's like it's almost like a form of like self-protection, you know, and it's like you're not your most authentic self if you're coping.
Right.
You know.
True. Yeah. I think for me, the reason why it bothers me so much is like the idea of like something can get the better of me. Like that's just, whether that's healthy or unhealthy, that's a whole other thing. But like,
is that a coping mechanism in and of itself?
I mean, I guess maybe. Anyway, we'll think about that afterwards. Maybe, yeah. But like genuinely the idea of like something like weighing me down, I'm like, no, I like that. I don't believe that, you know, and for me, I'm like, yeah.
Like something could have power over you.
Yeah, I hate that. I hate that idea.
Because there's so much work on
anyway, yeah. Well, just like I like not that I feel like I'm invincible, but just the idea of like I don't believe there's anything out there that can get the better of me in the sense, you know. Like obviously, I believe like I've got like God on my side in the sense, and
but also like mind over matter or like that kind of stuff.
Like we're stronger than we realize. Anyway. I think we just give space for things too much. Like we give too much space for things. Okay. So, but maybe that's a whole other direction.
Yeah, I gotta stop my brain because it's going right now. We gotta keep this podcast on track.
That's my thing with coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
However, there is a healthy side to it as well, right? With coping mechanisms, would you say?
Well, I would think so. But even before we get to that, like I think it's important that we differentiate coping mechanisms with defense mechanisms.
I noticed it then.
There we go. Nice. It's there. Yeah. Anyway.
Yes, let's separate the two. Yeah.
Right? Because like it's one of those things where I always kind of knew the difference, and I would say them interchangeably, and then stop and think about it, and be like, wait, no, actually, this one's a defense mechanism. Okay, this one's a coping mechanism. But like, you never really think about it.
Yeah.
But I just thought this was so fascinating. I actually took a screenshot of the actual quote from the article because I thought it explained it so perfectly. But it says a coping mechanism or coping mechanisms are used to manage an external situation that is creating problems for an individual, but a defense mechanisms can change a person's internal psychological state. Like essentially a defense mechanism is something from the mind that then is like usually subconscious and projects into behavior, right? Like I'm acting this way because it's a brain thing, but a coping mechanism is like, I will act this way. So my brain changes. You know what I mean? It's flipped. Isn't that so interesting? And I thought with the whole mind and behavior series, I'm like, that's a great way to...
Yeah. It is cool. Yeah. I think like something as well because you mentioned before the idea of like how coping mechanisms, they're a good thing, and like people view them as something that's like beneficial in ways to like help your life, right? But I think a big reason for that is like people don't see, like, I think it's because this has nothing to do with science or anything we've researched, but just like the idea of like there's hope beyond that our life. Like, I don't think that is a thing for everyone. So if there isn't hope beyond like the life that I'm living now, why would anyone think that there's anything past the things that they struggle with, right?
It's surviving versus thriving, which is cheesy and cliche, whatever, but it's true. Like, are you just doing your best just to make it through life?
Yeah, like,
or do you think that you could have the fullest life?
Right. People just think like the things that they're stressed about or struggling with, like that is life and that is the way it is.
And how can I make it through it?
Yeah. And that's such a shame. Obviously, for us, like, you know, we believe in a God. We believe in a life beyond like what we're living now.
Or that like my problems don't have to stay my problems.
Yeah. I think it's because of that, because of that hope that we have. And so I think that's so interesting. Like, it's almost like hopeless.
Yeah.
To a certain extent.
Yes. If coping mechanism is like the way that you think that you're gonna, like the only way to deal with it.
Yeah.
But I think coping mechanisms, as we like were researching and, you know, and I was confronted and challenged with my thoughts about, okay, like maybe it's not awful, you know, maybe they're not as bad as I always thought they were. But like if you use it as a tool to manage a situation, you know what I mean? Like an uncomfortable situation. I feel like I'm saying that wrong, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like, instead of using it to avoid problems, like you putting yourself in a position where you're in a problem.
Yeah.
You know, but you know you won't be the most comfortable, so you'll like use tools to like help you make through it.
Right. Yeah. Like it keeps you away from the process of being able to heal from something.
Yeah, that's not what I was saying though.
I know.
Okay.
But I'm just kind of adding.
You were going the negative and I was trying to go the positive.
No. Like what I'm saying is like sorry, okay, yeah, but like that is the negative. So that's the unhealthy version of a coping mechanism.
Yeah, if it's preventing you from healing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And if it's
as opposed to helping you cope on the way to healing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. We should write an article.
Right. Well, yeah, maybe, yeah.
I think we need a little bit more scientific credit.
I think so.
We write an article. Speaking of articles, can we please
yes, pull it out?
All right, so we're gonna go through an article. This is from ThriveWorks. That's a nice name. So they talk about bad coping mechanisms as well as good ones. And we're just going to go through the bad ones and basically out ourselves. And see.
Let's hear it. Come on then.
Maybe you relate to this too. I don't know. Let's see. Okay, number 1 is isolation. It says when you feel overwhelmed or constantly annoyed by others, isolating yourself from everyone might seem like a logical way to remove stress from your life. However, connection is a very important part of a healthy life, and decreased social interaction and physical activity can be harmful to one's mental and physical health if it persists for too long.
Do you isolate yourself? Sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes. yeah, I do, Zach. Why?
Cool, yeah. I mean, that's cool, yeah. Not much more to add to that. Anyway, keep going.
But with this one, I feel like I have a healthy version of it and an unhealthy version of it.
Right.
You know? So like, for example, okay, I don't want to deal with people or whatever, so I'm just going to like ignore you because I can't cope with whatever. That's so interesting. I can't cope, so I cope.
Interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, but not lately, you know, sort of lately, I've been a little more like overwhelmed in like social situations, which is very unlike me, but I think just a lot going on.
Yeah.
And there'll be times where I'm like, okay, I'm going to like back out and I'm going to like go to the kitchen and do the dishes and like remove myself for the situation, like not leave the party, you know, but like.
Don't be in the middle of it.
Yeah. And I think that's a healthier coping mechanism.
Yeah.
As opposed to I'm going to shut you out, isolation. Because it still kind of is isolation, but it's like, I need to like get my feelings sorted out, which I will.
You're not just pushing it to the side and then ignoring it. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's good.
Thanks. I try really hard. 2, relying on others too much. Yay. It says, on the other hand, it's also possible to over-rely on people in your life. Having support is good, but if too much of one's self-worth and validation needs are placed on family and friend groups, one's self-esteem can be put in a precarious position. When your happiness is wholly dependent on others being around you, It's much harder to deal with hardship without them.
That's tough, man. Yeah, that's tough. Definitely struggle with that one.
Yeah, anyway, we don't need to talk to that one.
Yeah.
Oh, look at our favorite one, jumping to conclusions.
Oh, yeah.
Number 3.
That's, yeah, our favorite one. Yeah, I mean, it is. That's very fair.
And I get this word wrong every single time, and I practiced it this morning. Let's see if I get it. Catastrophizing. Does that sound right?
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Keep going.
Okay.
It does sound. Yeah.
No, it's not, because it says whatever. No, there's not enough vowels in that. Okay. Anyway, but essentially trying to figure out potential outcomes to choices or problems can be helpful. However, you start making quick judgments and constantly thinking of the worst outcomes so that you avoid any kind of hurt, you might be catastrophizing, or whatever, you know.
I think that was good.
Thanks.
It sounded good. So what's an example of how you would use that as a coping mechanism? Because for me, in my mind, I'm like, well, I do that in an unhealthy way.
Yeah.
And it will make me live in this world of, I guess, it's delusion.
Which is coping with reality, because you can't.
But like,
even a bad fake reality to me sometimes is better than my actual reality.
But the thing is, I've created that, like this world.
Yeah.
Because like, it's not a good world though. Like, it's not like I'm using this world to get away from the reality of the world. Yeah.
Well.
But like, okay, so
it's called self-sabotage, Zach. Okay.
I guess maybe. I mean, okay. So talk me through. Genuinely, talk me through this, because like, I'm like, well,
it's like,
is it a coping mechanism? Because I'm just making it, like, if anything, like, it's not helping me. It's making it worse to deal with.
Yes, but I think that the root of coping mechanisms are like helping you not live in reality. Like, whatever is actually going on is too much, so I'm gonna go to something else. That does not always mean like, oh, everything's nice, yay. I'm gonna like cope by like pretending like my problems don't exist. Sometimes I cope by making more problems in my head, because that makes more sense to me. Or because I think that you should be mad at me, so I'm gonna create this whole scenario in my head that like proves that you're mad at me. And that I literally will cope through that. Because what if you actually aren't mad at me and then have to deal with the fact that like...
So it's like, yeah, I guess in my mind, I'm like, the coping mechanism should be somewhere you go to. It's like somewhere you take refuge in almost, because you're...
Yeah, but you can also take refuge in self-sabotage.
Blimey, can you? Wow, that's crazy. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Interesting. I have to think about that one a bit more, because like, from, you know, yeah.
Because it's not necessarily what makes you feel like good, as in like happy, but like what like
takes me away.
Yeah, or what makes me feel like, what, not good, but like comforted.
But that's the thing. Like, I don't feel comforted when I do that.
I would ask you to challenge your thought on that.
Really?
Like, do you find comfort in inflicting pain on yourself?
Okay, well, that's a different question. And that's a very interesting question.
Just rhetorical. Neither of us can answer.
And okay, yeah. Because, I mean, that sentence alone sounds pretty bad. But like... Okay, yeah, well, that's not good.
Okay, we're going to go to number 4, okay?
Yeah, keep going.
Doom scrolling. Okay. Social media has become a very common stress outlet, but sometimes it can heap on stress instead of relieving it. Yeah, when you're just sitting there and it's
right. Like you're numbing yourself?
Yeah, and it's like, but again, it's like being like addicted to negative emotions as a way of coping. Like, I feel like that's it as well, because it's like you almost become addicted to stress.
Right, yeah. And you don't believe there's good. Almost.
No, you're just scrolling forever and ever, numbing yourself, living through other people's lives.
Right.
Everyone knows social media and its pitfalls.
Yeah.
5, avoiding problems. Types of avoidance like procrastination, living in the past, oversleeping, toxic positivity, or overworking are often used to cope with stress by not thinking about it.
Oh, there's so much going on here. This is just so ridiculous. Anyway, yeah, toxic positivity. That is a tough one, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I don't think I would have said I have toxic positivity until you pointed that out, but but maybe I do. No.
On this podcast, I literally look like the worst person ever.
Sorry, guys. Corny is very appreciated. Yeah.
But also very honest.
But very appreciated.
Yeah.
Cool. Keep going.
But this one, it says, so avoiding problems is essentially avoidance, right? Like putting everything underneath the surface. Yeah. But we all think that's one that we can all agree on, that avoiding your problems is not the healthy way of coping with them. Because they're still there.
Yeah.
Impulse spending. I won't say anything, and we'll then move on to number 7. Substance abuse. And I feel like this is like the typical ones that we think. Maybe like impulse spending, like a shopaholic or anything aholic, I feel like we'll be like, oh, that's coping, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't really cope because, you know, I'm not an alcoholic or whatever.
Yeah.
But all these other things.
Yeah.
And then our last one is excessive worry.
Nice.
It's good to be prepared for bad outcomes as well as good ones, but when worry and fear start to hold you back from living your life, they can become toxic.
Yeah. These are so interesting because a lot of them have to do with like your head space.
Yeah.
And not necessarily like an action itself, right?
Well, I think we all forget that like everything starts from our minds.
Yeah.
You know? Or like how much maybe our minds like impact us.
Yeah.
You know? And yes, a coping mechanism is to ease something going on in my brain. But that's just because the brain was there in the first place, you know? Like there was an issue.
Yeah.
So how do we not, though, go to I said toxic positivity, but in general, like negative, like coping mechanisms?
Yeah. To be honest, I'm not even sure what the full and best answer is, but I think, because in my mind initially, I'm still like going through this now, but like these things was a result of something I was like insecure about or something, or something that it's almost like because of my coping mechanisms, it created this rather than it being the coping mechanism itself, if that makes sense.
I'm not gonna lie, you kind of lost me.
Okay, so it's like I just didn't relate these. Simply put, I just didn't relate these things as ways of me coping with something. Yeah, I just put these as ways of this is a result of my insecurity or X, Y, and Z or whatever. So I think I'm just going through this thing of like, so what does that mean? Like, how do I like move on from this? And like, why are these like the things in the mind? Like, why are they things that I'm referring to?
Yeah.
As a coping mechanism.
Do you think we could just call them escapes? I guess a coping mechanism essentially just an escape.
I guess.
Something to escape whatever you're currently feeling or thinking or whatever that can't, like you just can't deal with.
Okay, but here's the flip side to this, right? Just to wrap my head around it a bit more. Like when we were looking online for like the different ways of coping and stuff like that, we also found a lot of practical things, a lot of like things that take action.
Right.
And these are ways to cope with whatever. So it was almost like ways of like reducing the stress or the unhealthy whatever it is. So things like dance, sports, music, art, community centers offering different things. Meditation was another one. So the idea of like breathing techniques to get you into that place of being able to be more at peace with things, like, you know, all of that sort of stuff. Mental health apps, like there were like different apps that they were suggesting, things like Calm, Headspace, MoodFit, like all of these again, like different, like I guess breathing,
like
tools, right? To like help.
It's not just breathing. On Calm, Harry Styles reads to you a bedtime story. So,
oops. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've never heard of that before. But anyway, yeah. So, like these are all things like to help bring that down. Whereas in my mind, like the things that we've listed off this list, like where you excessively worry, like that, like brings
heightens things.
Yeah,
yeah.
So it's like you've got two different ways of coping with things, but one almost like brings it down and tries to create it, like almost like suppresses it down slightly. Like sports, for example, like if I'm feeling stressed about something, I'll go for a run. I feel loads better afterwards, but the problem's still there. I've just been able to push it down until it rises back up to be able to face it almost.
Or like you've dealt with like the feelings maybe that it causes
in that moment. Yeah.
But it's still there.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Whereas like excessive worry, like for me, in my mind, I'm like, that just brings it up another
heightens
level.
It.
Yeah. And then I'm just living in this like even more chaos almost.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of words there, guys, but that's like like what my brain is
Yeah.
going through right now. I don't know if you have anything to add to that or what you...
Not much. I feel like I've said a lot of my piece already
Yeah.
on this. And clearly Zach and I will be talking about this for a while after
will,
this
yeah.
episode.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But yeah, how do we know, and how are we aware of like what this causes? I mean, I feel like that's even me just saying what I just said there, like that's a really practical way of me realizing, like,
It's creating awareness.
yeah, it's creating awareness
Yeah.
for something, and then being able to know like, okay, this is the healthy way to approach this.
Yeah.
And like what place does something like sports or even something like excessive worrying, like what place does that have in being able to kind of like see behind the scenes and
Yeah.
then deal with it, you know?
I think like, yeah, exactly. Deal with it. And I think that like if we use these as like kind of indicators, you know, if I'm realizing
Yeah.
that I'm worrying excessively, we're just going to like stay with that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Then like that is happening. Okay, cool. Awesome. Great.
Yeah.
But then why? Like, you know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
I think, or, you know, I just really, really want to go out for a run, or I just really, really want to go have fun with friends and like turn my brain off. Is it just because I'm tired and I had a long day and, you know?
Yeah.
Or is it because, you know, like there's actually something going on and I'm
Yeah.
trying to escape from it?
Right.
You know, so it's like, I think if we're just, without like being like, I don't know, horrible about it or like beating ourselves up completely about it, like a healthy amount of self-awareness where we can like take a step and be like, okay, like why am I actually doing this? Like
Yeah.
asking the why.
Yeah.
And like, am I like doing this thing? Is this like reaction, shall we say?
Yeah.
Is it a coping mechanism because I can't deal with it? Or is it just something that is going to help me right now as I work on the root of the problem, as I work on the thing that actually I'm trying to cope with?
Yeah.
And I think that is where coping mechanisms can maybe, for me at least in my journey,
Yeah.
like lose a lot of its negative connotation and maybe even become a bit neutral,
Yeah.
potentially.
I think there's a good side to this, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I
like-
don't think we can just say it's bad. I don't think that's fair. Yeah.
And there's definitely bad things that we're like, just coping. I'm like, no, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah. Don't
yeah,
avoid.
if you're healing, like if you're actually trying to heal, but sometimes that's a really painful process, so you will have to cope a little bit. Maybe that is going out for more runs because you're dealing with a lot of
Yeah.
emotional things and just really need to clear your head, really need those endorphins. Like that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's like helping not get weighed down by the healing process,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. Definitely.
I don't know.
And I think it's kind of interesting how like the relationship between like the idea of like an action helps reduce or like brings it down slightly.
Yeah.
Like, because a lot of the things that we listed online was like very practical things of like of movement, of doing something.
Yeah.
Whereas like the things that we listed off your list was like a lot more to do with the headspace idea thing. So
getting stuck in your head.
yeah, so it's weird how like the idea of action relates to like not suppressing but like reducing almost, you know? That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, because I think it takes your mind off it.
Yeah, right. You're looking at something else.
Exactly.
Right.
Which is actually very healthy sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like not all the time if you're never looking at the issue,
Yeah.
you know, but yeah.
Yeah. Love it. Okay,
I know.
let's wrap this up then. I guess I mean
So how do you cope?
No, good gosh, no, that'd be a whole other episode. I think I just wanted to mention that like therapy in its definition is like treatment intended to relieve or heal a disorder. So when we look at like, you know, the different things that we're going to for therapy, like is it actually bringing healing and like revelation, like redemption almost, like, or is it actually just helping us being able to deal with something and literally
or just cope?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
in the cope mechanism.
Yeah, I think exactly. If coping is just making you stay where you are and just being like, well, it is what it is. I
Yeah.
have a lot of issues with that phrase.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But like
there's hope beyond
exactly.
what you are dealing with right now. I think
Yeah.
that is so
That's key.
That is so key. Yeah.
I think that is our key point for today.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully this has challenged you guys.
Yes.
Just as much as it's challenged Zach and I.
As you can see, yeah, like
Yeah,
as
we're-
I'm showing.
Nervous laughter the entire episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully this will start conversations with you, your friends, like, yeah, and just see how you're coping.
Yeah.
And are you healing?
Yes.
Great question.
Boom.
Awesome.
Thank you, team. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for joining us at the Anchor of the Week, where we have hard conversations, hear people's stories, and challenge perspectives.
Remember, you can stay connected by following us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, as well as subscribing to our YouTube channel.
Hope these conversations are inspiring you to have hard convos as well.
We'll see you next time, and remember, attack topics and not people.